It was a cold, gray morning when, opening an old box of letters, Maria found something she never imagined. A childhood photo with a face she thought she'd forgotten forever. Her eyes lit up as she saw the faded image of a brother she'd lost sight of 50 years ago. What had happened to him? Where was he now? She never imagined fate would bring her to this moment. Have you ever wondered what you would do if you suddenly ran into someone very important from your past? Someone you thought you'd never see again? And no matter how painful the reunion might be, could you start over after so many years? For Maria, the answers were about to be revealed in a way that would change her life forever. After all, after so much time apart, would the longing still be strong enough to mend broken bonds? Maria held the photo with a trembling hand. It was a simple image, a record of a lost childhood, but one that carried with it an avalanche of feelings. In the photo, she and a smiling, innocent-looking boy were in a park. What made her pause for a moment and feel a deep pain was the fact that she recognized the boy but couldn't remember his name. The photograph was taken in the summer of 1975, the day her parents took them for a walk. And, as familiar as the child's smile was, her brother's name, who was just a step away from her heart, seemed to have been erased by life, distance, and lack of contact. What surprised her was realizing that, despite so many years, that face still carried a part of herself. He was still part of her, like a fragment of a story that had not been completed. The memories that remained were fragmented in disconnected pieces, but they still held a weight, an impact that seemed to grow as she looked at the image. Maria sat at the kitchen table, the photo on the yellowed stationery, and ran her hand over her forehead, wondering what to do. The doubt became unbearable. She knew she needed to find her brother, but how to begin? Where to look? After all, he could be anywhere in the world. She thought about so many things. Does he still recognize me? Does he have a happy life? What could have happened to him after all these years? And it was at that moment that, like a breath of cold wind, an idea took hold of her mind. She had a clue. Just one, but it was enough. Maria remembered a name, a possible address that her mother had mentioned years ago in a casual conversation. It was a distant memory, a conversation that had taken place in her kitchen when she was just 12 years old, and her mother had mentioned an orphanage for at-risk children. Her mother had never spoken much about that place, but the name sounded familiar. Now, years later, this orphanage could hold the key to finding her brother. She picked up the phone and, her hand still trembling, dialed the number. With each ring, her anxiety grew, but she couldn't turn back. The phone rang a few times until finally a voice on the other end answered, "Snow Francisco Orphanage. Good afternoon. How can I help?" Maria took a deep breath before speaking. She tried to remain calm, but her voice betrayed her nervousness. "Hello, I'm looking for a brother. I want to know if there's any record of a child named Lucas Pereira who lived there. He was my brother when we were children, and we were separated. I don't know if he still lives around here or if there's any record of him." The line paused for a long time. Then the operator began typing something. "Excuse me, ma'am, but can you give me more information about him? Maybe some detail that might help." Maria felt the weight of the question. The name Lucas Pereira meant nothing. She knew nothing more about him. Time, abandonment, and childhood tears had erased all traces. But she didn't give up. I don't have any more information. Just this photo and the name, Lucas Pereira. He was about 7 years old when we were separated. It was a difficult time, and after that, I never knew anything else. The attendant was silent for a moment. Time seemed to drag as Maria waited for an answer, a direction, anything that might point the way. "I'll need more time to look for these records, ma'am. Can we contact you later?" Maria almost couldn't believe the words. She felt a mixture of hope and despair at the same time. She no longer knew what to expect. There were so many unanswered questions, so much uncertainty, but there was something in her heart that told her she was on the right path. Please, do what you can. I truly appreciate it. Maria hung up the phone and stood there, silent, staring at her brother's photo. She thought about the pain he must have felt at being separated from her. Did he remember her? Or had his memory of her sister also faded, leaving only a void? There had been so much time between them, but looking at that photo, something inside Maria told her that, no matter how immense the distance, the longing still existed. It was an invisible bond that spanned the years and the space between them. In the days that followed, Maria became anxious, waiting for any news, any clue as to where Lucas might be. Each ring of the phone made her heart beat faster. She tried to imagine what the meeting would be like, how he would react, if he would recognize her. What she feared most was that he wouldn't want to know about her. That time had been too cruel, and that he had moved on, forming his own family with his own memories. It was then, a week later, that the phone rang again. Ms. Maria? We found what you were looking for. Lucas Pereira had been in our orphanage, and according to our records, he was adopted by a family in a nearby town in 1978. Maria felt her entire body tremble at those words. Finally, she had a real clue. The reunion was getting closer. She had a name, a town, and most importantly, the certainty that Lucas's destiny would eventually intersect with her own. Maria could hardly believe what she was hearing. The orphanage had found a record of her brother, Lucas Pereira, adopted by a family in a nearby town. A town that, at first, seemed too small for the immensity of feelings and questions she carried. She couldn't wait to follow the trail and finally see with her own eyes the man who so many years ago had been her brother, but fear also crept into her heart. What if he didn't recognize her? What if, after all these years, he no longer wanted to know her? After hanging up the phone, Maria grabbed a piece of paper and a pen, quickly jotting down the details the operator gave her. The town's name was a combination of consonants and vowels that meant nothing to her. She had never heard of that place, but now it was her only hope. She had to follow this path. No matter what she found there. Maria felt a whirlwind of emotions. On the one hand, she was excited and full of hope, but on the other, a shadow of uncertainty consumed her. What would it be like to see him after so long? What would he think of her? What would she say to him? What if he had already moved on with his life, started a family, and no longer felt the same emptiness she did? These questions haunted her as she packed her suitcase. She knew she couldn't waste time. Not anymore. She arrived in the small town late in the afternoon. The late afternoon breeze brought a coolness that seemed to lift the weight off her shoulders. The town was simple, with cobblestone streets and houses with flower-filled gardens. She was lost for a few minutes trying to find the exact address where Lucas had been adopted. When she finally arrived at the place, a simple but well-kept house, longing and fear mixed within her. Maria stood in front of the door, staring at the house. She didn't know what to expect or even how to introduce herself, but without hesitation, she knocked. A few seconds later, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes answered. "Hello, can I help you?" the woman asked with a smile. Maria swallowed. The answer seemed distant, but she managed to speak. "Hello, my name is Maria. I'm looking for Lucas Pereira. He was adopted by you many years ago in 1978. I'm his sister." The woman was silent for a moment, studying Maria's expression. The tension in the air was palpable. Then the woman smiled slightly, her look seeming to mix surprise and understanding. "Oh, of course. I remember Lucas. He was just a boy then. Come in, please. Let's talk." Maria followed the woman into the living room, where she sat, looking around. There were old photos on the wall, an open window letting in soft sunlight, creating a cozy atmosphere. The woman sat beside her. "I'm Donna Beatriz, Jorge's wife. We were responsible for Lucas's adoption. When he arrived here, he was only 7 years old, just like you said. He was a lively boy with a curious look in his eyes, but how can I explain? Time passed and Lucas, like all children, moved on with his life." Maria felt the weight of Donna Beatriz's words, but a faint hope remained. She needed to know more. "And is he here? Does he still live in this house?" Maria asked, her voice almost trembling. Donna Beatriz sighed softly and looked out the window for a moment before turning to Maria. "No, dear, Lucas doesn't live here anymore. He moved to another city a few years ago after he got married. I'm so sorry. He has a life of his own now, a family. You might see him there, but I'm not sure how he'll react to seeing you after all this time." Donna Beatriz's words cut Maria like a knife. Lucas married? Had a life of his own? How did she fit into all this? For so many years, she had imagined meeting him again as a simple thing. Once she knew the name of the city, but now, faced with reality, the scenario seemed more complex. I didn't know. I didn't know he already had a family. Maria took a deep breath, trying to hide the lump in her throat. "Where does he live now? I need to find him. I need to talk to him." "Donna." Beatriz hesitated for a moment before giving the answer. "He lives in a neighboring town called Villanova. I have his address if you want it. But I don't know how he'll react, Maria. It's been many years, and he's well established. Are you sure you want to continue?" Maria looked at Donna Beatriz with gratitude, but also with a growing sense of despair. Time was running out. If she didn't go now, she might miss the chance to finally be reunited with her brother. "I have to try." She stood up, determined. "Please, give me the address." Donna Beatriz quickly wrote it down on a piece of paper and handed it to Maria. Tension hung in the air, but Maria felt she could wait no longer. She thanked the woman, squeezed her hands, and with one last look at the house where Lucas had grown up, she left. The road that would take her to Villanova was ahead, and Maria knew that, regardless of what she found at the end of that path, she could not turn back. She needed to see Lucas, needed to feel that time hadn't completely erased their connection. She just didn't yet know what this reunion would be like or what it would mean for them both. But she was willing to find out. Maria drove along the road to Villanova with her heart racing, the sound of the car's engine filling the tents. Silence around her. Each passing kilometer felt like an eternity. She stared at the piece of paper with the address Donna Beatriz had written on it, which now seemed like a small map of an unknown territory, yet full of promise. What did she hope to find there? And more importantly, how would Lucas feel seeing her after so long? She tried to focus on the answers, but the questions only grew. The sun was setting when she reached the entrance to the town. Villanova was peaceful, with its small streets and tall trees forming a shady path. The town seemed stuck in time, with simple houses and well-kept gardens. Maria stopped in front of an iron gate with a discreet number engraved on the sign. The address was there. She swallowed hard and, without hesitation, got out of the car and walked to the door. When she rang the doorbell, the sound seemed to echo louder than usual. The sound of the button being pressed sounded like a signal that something was about to happen, but Maria didn't know what. Her mind was racing, trying to find the right words or anything that would make her seem less vulnerable. Time had dragged on until now, but she couldn't go back. The gate opened, and suddenly she found herself facing a man. Lucas. He had the same eyes she remembered, but his face was more marked by time. His skin was a little older, his hair, already dark in childhood, now streaked with gray. His gaze was attentive, but there was something else. Something that couldn't be identified. at first glance. Maybe it was the weight of the years, maybe doubt, or even surprise. He looked at her, not quite understanding what was happening. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice deep and calm, but with evident tension. Maria stood still for a moment. Her heart felt like it was about to burst out of her throat. There he was, the brother she'd searched for so long. That face that had accompanied her through all her dreams and memories, but now, before her, he seemed almost unrecognizable. The distance of so many years had changed them both so much. But something inside her knew that, no matter how much time had shaped him into the person he was still Lucas. "Lucas, she said, her voice breaking. "Lucas, I'm Maria, your sister." He stared at her for a few seconds, as if trying to understand what was happening, as if evaluating her words, searching for some sign that this was real. His expression was a mixture of disbelief and confusion. "Maria?" he repeated, still in disbelief. "My sister? How? How do you know that?" Maria took a deep breath, trying to control the whirlwind of emotions consuming her. She felt a lump in her throat. She needed to explain, but the words stuck. "I heard about you. I looked for you after so many years. I heard about the orphanage where you stayed and ... Then I found out you were adopted. I never forgot you, Lucas. I looked for you the whole time." Lucas remained silent, still processing her words. He looked at Maria, at her face, as if trying to find something familiar there, some clue that connected him to her. But the time between them had been so long, 50 years. How could what remained be just a distant memory, a childhood photo? He took a step back, still cautious. I don't understand. I was adopted, Maria. I didn't know about you. My mother told me there was no one else. That I had no family. I don't remember you." Lucas's words cut Maria like a knife. She knew he couldn't remember. His childhood memory of everything that happened had probably vanished. He had been separated from her so young, and time, with its wounds, had erased the memories. Even so, she couldn't help but feel a deep emptiness in her chest. Everything she imagined about that moment seemed completely different from reality, but she couldn't give up. Not now. Not after everything she'd been through. "I know it's hard, Lucas, but I remember you. And you are my family. I am your family, and that doesn't change, no matter how much time has passed." Lucas was silent for a few seconds. He looked at her again, more attentively now. Something was changing in his gaze. It was as if he was beginning to see the truth. He had forgotten, a truth he never imagined he could find. He sighed deeply, as if the weight of those words had hit him. I don't know what to say," Lucas shook his head. "I've lived my whole life without knowing this. It's hard for me to believe." Maria then took a step forward, more confident. She held out her hands as if trying to connect not only with him, but with everything he represented, her lost brother, the longing that never left her. "You don't have to believe it right away. You just need to know that I never forgot you, that I looked for you, and that, somehow, I never abandoned you, even without knowing where you were." He looked at her hands, hesitated for a moment, and then stepped forward. Without saying a word, Lucas hugged her. The embrace was tense at first, as if he were still trying to understand what was happening, but gradually he let go. And Maria, her eyes brimming with tears, finally felt that time, somehow, hadn't managed to erase what truly mattered. She had found her brother. They were still family. And, despite the pain and the distance, there was an unbreakable bond that united them. The next few minutes passed in a comfortable silence where words became unnecessary. Maria and Lucas stood there in the embrace that represented the reconstruction of a story that life had interrupted. The warmth of their reunion still permeated their bodies, but little by little The tension that had marked the beginning of that moment gave way to something softer. There was no need to rush. Time had been cruel, but now, as they stood before each other, it seemed as if it had finally paused. Their story was yet to be written. I didn't know, Maria. I never knew you were there, somewhere, waiting for me. Lucas said, finally breaking the silence. His voice was calmer now, but surprise was still reflected in his gaze. Maria looked into his eyes, trying to process all the emotions, the longing, the pain, the hope, and now the reunion. It wasn't perfect. Nothing was perfect, but it was real. And that was enough. I never stopped looking for you. I had hope, Lucas. Even without knowing where you were, I knew that one day life would bring us together. Maria gave a shy smile. I think we need to make a new beginning, don't you? Lucas nodded slowly, a smile beginning to form on his lips. He looked at her as if trying to memorize every detail, every nuance of her face, as if finally understanding the full extent of what was happening. I know it's late, Maria. Life has moved on for both of us, but you found me. And that's more than I could have imagined. I thought that, after everything I've been through, I'd never see my sister again. But here you are. Maria looked at him with teary eyes. There were so many things she wanted to say, so many questions still lingering in her mind. But at that moment, words seemed unnecessary. They had all the time in the world now. I know things aren't how I imagined. I can't go back and give you back the time we lost, but we can try, Lucas. We can try to live through what's left behind. Try to do what we can with the time we still have. They fell silent once more. And this time, it was a silence filled with understanding, with acceptance. There were no more doubts, no more insecurities. The past was behind them. Now, it was time to move on. I've always wanted to know about you, Maria. I've always wondered where you were, what happened to you. I don't know where to begin or how to do this, but yes, I want to try too. I want to try to discover who you are now. Asterisk those words, spoken so simply, were all Maria needed to hear. It was the beginning of something new, the start of a chapter that seemed impossible, but which was now before her. And for the first time in a long time, she felt that life had made sense again. So let's try, together. We have a whole life to live. Let's not let what happened define us, but rather what we can build now. It doesn't matter how much time we've lost. What matters is what we can still do. They entered Lucas's house, where they talked for hours, reminiscing about little things from their childhood, sharing stories about their lives, and filling the voids left by time. There was no rush. They were finally together again, and that was all that mattered. In the following days, Maria and Lucas began to reconnect. It wasn't easy. Their relationship had been interrupted at a time when they needed each other most. But longing and brotherly love began to build again. They strolled around the city, visiting places that brought back memories of the past, and each new step felt like a new discovery. A new beginning. Lucas, who had started his own family, introduced Maria to his children and his wife, who welcomed her with open arms. Maria, over time, also shared her life with him, the losses, the victories, and the stories she'd kept hidden during all those years of solitude. But what truly united them, what truly made that reunion so special, was the simple act of accepting each other as they were. They could no longer be the children they'd been before, but it could be adults who now understood the value of time, of longing, and of the love that is never lost, no matter how much time passes. Maria and Lucas knew there was still much to learn about each other, much to share. But finally, they were together. Lost time could not be recovered, but the future, yes, could be lived. They were ready to rewrite their story. Now certain that what united them was stronger than everything that had separated them. And as the sun set behind the mountains, illuminating their new lives, Maria and Lucas, for the first time in decades, felt that the past, with all its pain, had ceased to be a burden. Now their story was one of reunion, of reconciliation, and above all, of love. Just as Maria and Lucas reunited after so many years, how about joining us for more moving and inspiring stories? If you haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button and activate the bell so you don't miss any touching moments like this. Let's write more unforgettable chapters together.